Welcome, everyone, to Cailen McCormick's virtual campaign kickoff. My name is Liz Stragalis. I'm part of the campaign leadership team. I've been a Dedham resident for 11 years. I'm a parent with 3 kids at Avery, and I'm honored to share with you tonight more about Cailen's vision for Dedham Schools. I've really only known Cailen for 8 months, but in that short time, it became very clear that she was the right person to guide us through the challenges we're facing. I've watched her lead in our community. I've seen her build consensus, but I've also seen her take a strong stand when it was necessary. That's why I'm in her corner, and I hope by the end of the night, you'll leave with a deep understanding of who she is and why she's uniquely qualified to earn your vote. So to get us started tonight, a few important things to mention. We are recording the call and we'll make it public. As far as our agenda, we're going to hear from Dedham residents who are passionate about Cailen's campaign and some of her professional colleagues and friends who have worked with her and have known her for a while. We'll have a Q&A. At any point during the meeting, you can send your questions over. Just put them in the chat. Make sure that you mark them to co-host Kim Bevins. You can remain anonymous if you like, or you can include your name, and then during the Q&A, we can bring you into the conversation. We've had a lot of questions submitted already through the registration form, so we're going to try and get to as many as we can tonight. Any that we don't get to, we'll be sure to publish the answers on the campaign website and on the Facebook page. So now we're going to do a live poll. We want to know what issues are related to Dedham Schools right now are top of mind for you. Again, for this time, your answers will remain anonymous. You'll see that there's a link that we just dropped into the chat. Go ahead and click on that link and you can fill it out. We'll take about a minute and then we're going to look at the responses together just to get a feel of what people are thinking about, what they care about as far as the schools. So I'll give about a minute starting now and go ahead and fill that in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start taking a look at what some of the responses are that are coming in. Give it just a second and we'll see if we can share the responses. Okay, so interesting to see what people answered here. It looks like, and again, the size of the word is the number of times that response came in. So it looks like diversity, equity, inclusion, transparency, curriculum, education, inclusiveness, drinking, reopening are top of mind for people tonight. So Cailen's going to address some of these issues in her speech as well as in the Q&A. But it's good to know that these are the things that are of concern to everyone tonight, and hope to have some really concrete responses to some of those issues. So now we're going to turn to our first speaker, Mary Ellen McDonough. If you don't already know her, if that is possible, Mary Ellen grew up in Dedham and raised her 4 kids in the public schools here. In her professional role as a real estate agent, she literally facilitates the very act of community building. She's held leadership roles as a town meeting member and with multiple Dedham educational organizations like DEF and Green Lodge PTO. I know there's more to this, but at this point, Mary Ellen, it's all yours.
There we go. All right, now I'm unmuted. All right. Hi, sorry. Technical difficulties. Technology is not my strong suit. So anyways, for those of you who don't know me, I am Mary Ellen McDonough. I am a lifelong Dedham resident, a townie in the best sense of the word. I grew up on Madison Street. I went to the Oakdale School, Dedham Junior High, back when it was called that, back when it was that, Dedham High School. And then after college and law school, I moved back to Dedham to raise my four kids. All four of my kids have gone or are still going through the Dedham Public Schools. My first three have all graduated. My oldest graduated from Villanova last May, and she's a nurse at Children's. My second two are in college now. They are, oh my God, I have to think how old they are. They're both in college now. One's at Syracuse and one's at Fairfield. And the youngest one is a fifth grader at Green Lodge. So I have been very committed to, the public schools in Dedham, both from having my own experience there, but also having my children attend there. I did spend a number of years working with the Dedham Education Foundation, which is a fabulous group in town. If you don't know of it, you should look it up and you should donate to them and you should probably join them. They give out grants to all of our public schools from the ECEC up through the high school to enhance enrichment opportunities to, on top of the curriculum. I have served on the school building rehab committee back when we were not just back, just fairly recently during the construction of the new ECEC. I've been a town meeting member for many years in Precinct 7, and I'm currently up for re-election. So if you live in Precinct 7, throw me one of your votes. And lastly, I have spent many, 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 many years at the Green Lodge PTO, and I will thankfully be finishing that up in June. So this is just to give you background on me, just to just show you that to me, I feel very strongly that a community should be investing in its public schools. And I feel that the more you invest in your public schools, the stronger your commitment to the community is. That's just my personal belief. So, as a real estate broker, I see every day the direct relationship between public schools and property values. I mean, it's not rocket science to know that there's a reason why people are paying to live, big bucks to pay in Wellesley and Sudbury versus other places. But I think sometimes that decision is made to top level. They look at the SAT scores, they look at rankings in the Boston Globe, and they just think, okay, that's what makes a school system. And that isn't what makes a school system. You really have to look at the data underneath it. And I feel like Dedham has always been committed to its public schools, from the amount that we spend, our per pupil expenditure, our commitment to be paying competitive salaries, our commitment to technology in and out of the classroom. Just the fact that we've built 3 new schools in the past 20 years just shows the level of commitment that Dedham has to its public schools. And that's actually why I'm excited to introduce Cailen tonight, because I feel like she brings that same level of commitment to wanting to run for the school committee. She's an educator herself in the Boston Public Schools. She's a working mother of 3 small children. She is committed to staying and living within Dedham, obviously. And she is is one of the co-founder administrators of Dedham's anti-racism coalition page on Facebook. So I just think she's bringing the right youth experience, energy, and perspective that we need on the school committee. I actually met Cailen and Ben a few years ago when they were moving within Dedham. I helped them sell their house on Taylor Ave and move to Walnut Street. And I honestly just fell in love with them from the get-go. Like, they're just warm and friendly, and they're just great, great people. And to me, as a real estate agent who's worked here for many years, I love it when I see people wanting to move within Dedham. I mean, I obviously grew up in this town. I moved back to this town. Like, I love the community that we have here. And when I see young families that want to stay in Dedham and further their roots here, it just, it feels very validating to me, if nothing else. I just feel like that's exactly what we need in this town. So I am very excited to see that Cailen wants to make this next step and run for public office here and run for the school committee. Personally, I think she might be, not only committed, but get committed by the end of this process. But, she's young. I've got faith in her. So like everything else, in the world, I feel like Dedham is changing. It's evolving. We're definitely experiencing some growing pains. But I truly believe that we have a wonderful community here. And I think that Cailen is a great addition to that community. And I hope that you will give her one of your 3 votes for school committee. That's all I got.
Thanks so much, Mary Ellen. You have to bear with us. We're like running into some mute, unmute issues here. So you'd think at this point in the pandemic, this would be like completely. So just bear with us on the mute issues. Um, Mary Ellen, really appreciate that. Uh, Now we have the opportunity to hear from Paul Reynolds on why he's supporting Kylan's campaign. So, if you don't know him, Paul is a former Dedham selectman and current town meeting member. He's one of the founders and creative forces at Fable Vision, and I'm really excited to now hand it over to him. Paul?
That we were able to unmute. That's awesome. Okay, thank you, Liz. I am delighted to be here and throw my support for Cailen. I am, as you said, a two-term selectman. Well, back in the old days when we called it the Board of Selectmen. I'm excited that it is the Select Board now. And I just want to say kudos to everybody who is running, because anybody who is brave enough, crazy enough, um, willing to sacrifice their time to hold any public office really deserves our support. We know how much work it takes to run a campaign, and once you're elected, I think there's some people who still think I'm on the select board because I still get phone calls and get stopped in the street for help. So, kudos to all of the amazing candidates who are running. And it really is interesting that school committee has galvanized such catalytic support and attention. And I think it is because, as Mary Ellen was saying, we're at a really important inflection point. I've lived in Dedham and raised our three boys here in Dedham, and seen tremendous change and tremendous positive change. And yeah, there are some growing pains as we move along, but it takes very hard work to do the good work. And Cailen, thank you so much, because all the work you have already done to advance the conversation around diversity and anti-racism, and finding collaborative community spirit is hugely important to me. And I know my twin brother, Peter Reynolds. We really support you. I'm also an educator. I've been teaching at Boston College for just a little over 30 years. And I know the transformational change that can happen between teacher and student. And that's why I'm particularly excited that Cailen's running, because teacher voice is hugely important. Teachers on the front line, I want to give a hug to every teacher out there, because they are doing such important work, and especially during these challenging times, we know that it has tremendous impact on all of our kids, and during COVID era especially, more challenging than ever. So when I was digging in to learn about Cailen's background, I was immediately impressed. Well, number one, that she's a Boston College alum, so fellow Eagle, and multiple times. And you're the cascade of educational degrees was impressive, but even more impressive was the fact that Cailen's particular focus is around special needs. And in our family, we have a connection. Part of our journey, Peter's very first job at age 15, he was riding his bicycle along in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, where we grew up, and there was a sign at a local camp that said "Camp Counselor Wanted." He stopped. He's like, "Oh, I'd like a summer job," and he wheeled his bike up, and they immediately hired him. Said, "If you're available, you're hired." And then he was introduced to the kids in his group. And it's only then when he realized it was a special needs camp. And it was a profoundly transformational experience, because at that point, he had to understand what each child could do. What are they capable of doing? And pedagogically, that was hugely informative for us and our journey. And looking at the positive and looking at what can happen is really important. So that sensibility that Cailen brings to her work, the education work, is critically important. So there are lots of reasons why I am ready to vote for Cailen, and the and I'm not going to go on because we have a lot of people to who need to speak. But I do want to say that if you are committed to Cailen, it's very, very important to actually vote on Saturday, April 10th. And I cannot stress that enough. We've had some pretty important issues where people have said, oh, the election was Saturday, I meant to vote. So really, if you can reach out to 10 people in your network to tell them about Cailen and remind them on the day of, did you vote? That work is probably almost more important because you can believe in a candidate, but they will not get elected unless enough people show up and cast their vote. So I am smiling with Cailen. I actually had to be coached on how to pronounce your name. So I decided I'm smiling with Cailen. So I'm smiling with Cailen. So thank you, Cailen. Awesome. And thanks everybody for showing up tonight. It's important work to dedicate a Saturday night to do this kind of civic homework. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Liz, for organizing and the whole team.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Paul. So at this point tonight, I'm elated to turn it over to Cailen so we can hear from her directly and learn about her experience and vision for Dedham Public Schools.
Folks, thank you so much for being here. When we first sent out the invite, we called this a happy hour. So I just want to say big cheers to Paul and Mary Ellen for the introductory speeches, and we appreciate you. So I'm here tonight and here on this journey to be elected to our school committee as a parent and as an educator. To kind of echo what Paul said, the choices we make in our schools and in the communities we build in our schools have a direct and long-lasting impact on our students, families, and our town. The school committee is an important component of our school system where members of the community can have an impact. And as a candidate to this committee, I'm uniquely qualified and I'm super excited to run, despite everybody calling me crazy. It's all good. I appreciate you all being here, and I assume you're here to hear my why, and for me to help you with your why you should grant me one of those 3 votes on April 10th. So here goes. So I'm first going to briefly share my professional experience with you, which was touched on a little bit, but so I'll try to be brief with that. My career has been dedicated to public education. I have degrees in early childhood education, special education, and behavior analysis. Education is my passion. And it is second only to my passion for being a parent to my 3 children. Those of you who are parents, caregivers, and educators, I'm sure will all agree that these roles are intertwined. We have become all too familiar with juggling all of our responsibilities, including parenting, supporting remote learning, maintaining our own jobs, and generally just surviving at this point. As a school committee member, I will share my passion and expertise in education and my perspective as a parent with our greater community. More importantly, I'll listen to you and learn from you in order to support policies, goals, and budgets that are reflective of and supported by our community as a whole. My career began with me teaching students on the autism spectrum and evolved from there to working so I started working as a teacher in a classroom. It evolved from there to being an administrator within the Boston Public Schools Central Office. And now I work in my current job is at a small K0 through 5th grade school, and it's just about 10 minutes from here. Our school is considered full inclusion, which means that we educate students with special needs in the classroom alongside their typically developing peers. It means that we celebrate, encourage, embrace, and honor all facets of our students' identities. This school is such a special place. It's one of those places that you can feel is special the moment you walk in the door. This community feel has blossomed under the unparalleled leadership of our school principal, Rodolfo, who, in addition to being my boss, is also my friend and mentor. And you'll hear, he has on a really cute bow tie, and you'll hear him speak in a little bit. So I hope you will agree that he is my friend and mentor. But as a team at my school, it's our goal to be champions for justice, equality, and for closing opportunity gaps. Our school is a place where everyone, students, families, and educators, can always be learning, and we are always learning and unlearning. Our school starts at age 3, so even our youngest students start learning that Black lives matter. LGBTQ lives matter. There is no normal or typical family structure. Inclusion means everyone, every race, culture, language, gender expression or identity, family composition, ability, or disability. And these are the exact lessons my husband and I strive to teach our own children. Ben and I have been married for 10 years, one in a pandemic, and we're still going strong. And this is my children's normal, a white family with a mom, a dad, and an adorable dog. But my kids know that just because it's our normal, it doesn't mean it's the only or the best. My 3 kids are playing house like kids do. One day, not too long ago this winter, Cohen, my middle son, was dad, and Campbell, my oldest son, was naturally the other dad. And Isla was the baby. Penny, our dog, played the part of the dog. And they were so matter of fact about this, and I'm proud. Are my kids perfect? No, definitely not. In fact, I'm glad you're all here, but also preemptively embarrassed for the day you will inevitably recognize me in a store. So picture this, I'll be whisper yelling at my kids as they run up and down the aisles of CVS with airplane arms, knocking over every 4th item on the shelf. And honestly, some of you may have already witnessed this because it's a true story. And as I was practicing this speech, my 7-year-old was cracking up laughing, remembering. So hopefully that was a one-time thing. But it's okay because I'm here for it. As the African proverb states, it truly takes a village to raise a child. And I don't know where we would be without our village. This has always sounded nice and resonated as a nice thing that people do for each other, but it's so incredibly true. It takes a village, and we all need a village. I grew up in Vermont, and Ben grew up in North Carolina. When we decided to move to Dedham almost 10 years ago, we did so because we saw a community of people to whom we could relate, even though our families were very far away. We bought a house less than a mile from my best friend from college. And now our village has grown. We have the most fantastic babysitter who I'm totally going to call out. She's here tonight, Colleen Downing. She loves our kids like her own, and our kids love her like a third parent. Sometimes our village is fresh baked, homemade mac and cheese on the front porch and a sweet note when there's nothing that we needed more and we didn't even know it until it showed up. An unsolicited refill of coquito right before the holidays, an offer for groceries added to a Target order, a pool day, a surprise takeout order, grandparents who pre-pandemic take our 3 wild kids overnight and who mid-pandemic drive 7 hours to load our dining room table with thoughtful craft projects, much needed wine, tea, chocolate, and other things for the kids without even a face-to-face greeting or a hug. Holiday themed packages in the mail like clockwork, Zoom calls that serve as remote babysitting with stories read aloud in what feels like hours of virtual hide and seek. And yes, that is a thing. I can teach you if anybody's into it. It takes a village. A call from my son's 1st grade teacher on which I can tell from her voice that she sincerely enjoys this little 7-year-old and values him as a person. And it's not because he's special or unique or mine, but because she's an incredible educator and sees the magic in every child assigned to her roster. It takes a village, and every single person in our town needs to see and feel and believe that this village, our town of Dedham, is here for them. This is community. At the heart of community is family, friends, and our schools. And that's why we are all here. And I'm here asking for you to vote for me to help represent all of Dedham as one of 7 members of our school community on April 10th. So how did I get from building my village here in Dedham to running for school committee? Because I saw an opportunity to give back to our community in a way that utilizes my expertise and contributes to something that is personal to me. But beyond the hard work this campaign takes, the supportive family that I'm dependent upon, the support of my community, and honestly, the most incredible campaign team anyone could ever ask for, there is more that is making it possible for me to be here in this position with all of you tonight. And that's my privilege. Our society was designed for people like me to succeed, and conversely, it was designed for other people not to. Let's take a look at the racial divide and how it relates to education for Dedham Public School students. I'll share Dedham's 2019 English Language Arts MCAS for 3rd grade and 10th grade students. And this is just a snapshot, but I can say it's representative of a larger batch of data. In 2019, for Dedham students who identify as Black or African American, only 24% of 3rd graders scored in the highest 2 categories possible of exceeds or meets. This is in contrast to the fact that 62% of students who identify as white scored in these same 2 top tier categories. That is staggering. For our 10th grade students, results are similar. 66% of white students exceed or meet, and 33% of Black students meet. There were no students who identify as Black who scored in the exceeds category for 10th grade ELA MCAS. I'm highlighting these numbers just as a representative sample. These data are simply not good enough. Systemic racism, systems that set up members of our community for failure, are not good enough. There are brilliant children who are not being supported in their brilliance, who are not being permitted to thrive or matter because the system has set them up for failure. Our town, our educators and administrators and school committee members are incredible people who have done momentous things for our town and the advancement of DEI, and we still need to do more. My career and my experiences, are they extraordinary? No, absolutely not. But it's all deliberate, and I'm passionate, I'm invested, and I'm qualified. This status quo is not good enough. Diversity, equity, and inclusion also apply to students with varying needs and abilities, students who require individualized education plans for success, or who are part of the many wonderful special education programs and services here in Dedham. I said this before, but inclusion means everyone. And our students have diverse abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. It is our responsibility as a school system to meet all students where they are and provide them with the support systems they need to succeed. We need to focus on students who need additional support to access a free and appropriate public education, while also continuing to develop extensions and enrichment opportunities to the curriculum so all students can achieve to their fullest potential. Teachers and administrators are experts in their role as educators. Many have spent countless hours and dollars on their education and have dedicated years to be where they are professionally. We need to trust them and foster productive, meaningful conversations. Successful education of all students cannot happen without the collaboration of families. As parents and caregivers, we know our children best, and that's why our voices are crucial in ensuring that Dedham students have access to curriculum and instruction that is accessible, inclusive, and constantly evolving. 2 more quick thoughts. I could not finish speaking with all of you tonight without touching on what is no doubt at the forefront of all of our minds. The COVID crisis and the implementation of remote and hybrid teaching and learning is certainly, making us all pull our hair out if you're anything like me. I firmly believe that our schools need to open, and they need to open safely and equitably. Remote instruction is so extremely challenging. Educators have literally reinvented teaching, and along those same lines, parents and caregivers have been required to wear more hats than we could ever have imagined. Children are resilient and amazing little people, but the impacts of this pandemic on children will be pervasive, long-lasting, and will exacerbate already existing opportunity and achievement gaps. Kids need school for routine, for learning, for social emotional wellness. I know there are so many variables that play into the reopening of schools, but I will collaborate, think creatively, listen, advocate for, and ultimately support policies that will lead to a quick and safe reopening. My hope is that much of what I shared tonight really resonates with all of you. Really think about all of the ways in which we all would be better if all students in our town and our world were achieving to their highest potential. Inclusion means everyone, and I mean this. Inclusion means everyone. By building a community in our schools that is welcoming, that celebrates differences, and that believes in all children, we are teaching and modeling appreciation of differences, We are providing our children with the tools to communicate with and exist in a world that is full of people who are different from themselves. And this is beautiful. To quote Dr. Bettina Love, schools are mirrors of our society. Schools must be places where all students and educators thrive, feel supported, represented, empowered, and schools must be places where all children are believed in. I so look forward to answering your questions on these topics and so many more tonight and in the coming weeks. And I hope to serve all of our community as a member of our school committee. It takes a village, and I hope to be part of your village as a school committee member. I'm passionate, invested, and uniquely qualified. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Cailen. Did that speech get you excited? I feel like that vision for Dedham is why I joined this team. I need a village. My name is Ann Stevens. I'm a nurse. I'm a mother of 4. I grew up in East Dedham, and that's where I am currently raising my family. I have one child at the middle school. He'll go off to the high school next year. I've got one at Avery, one at the ECEC, and that one that'll filter through the Dedham Public Schools in coming years. This makes me personally invested in this race. We need to make sure that we are electing the most qualified candidates to the school committee. Cailen is extraordinarily qualified. Because of how competitive this race is, we need all the help we can get. There are lots of ways that you can help support Cailen, depending on your bandwidth and your comfort level. The most important, again, as Paul said, is your vote on Saturday, April 10th. We really need to make sure that everybody comes out and casts their ballots. We're going to drop a link in the chat that will bring you to a Google form that just offers additional options for ways to volunteer. If you'd like to sign up to have a lawn sign in your yard, if you want to come and hang out socially distanced with us for a sign hold, we'd love to have you. So that link is going to be there. And now we're going to hear just quickly from 2 more people that know Cailen personally, and we'll move on to the Q&A portion of the evening. I'm happy to introduce Rodolfo Morales, the current principal and Cailen's boss at the Bates School.
Good evening, y'all. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you. My name is Rodolfo Morales. I am the proud principal of the Bates Elementary School, the same school where Cailen McCormick serves as an inclusion specialist and BCBA. I'm probably one of the few people here who are not a Dedham resident. I am a Boston resident. Someone said they were a Dedham townie. I think it was Mary Ellen. I am a Hyde Park townie, which means I'm across the street from Dedham. So I remember biking to Flanagan's. I don't know if y'all remember Flanagan's. Okay, yep. I used to bike to Flanagan's to get a gallon of milk. I remember going to the Dedham Mall to see Santa Claus and get something from KB Toys. I remember going to that giant parking lot behind the theater when there was a carnival there and all the theme rides. So I just want to thank you for being here, and I want to also say, like, I'm a very social person. Zoom has these reaction features, so if there's anything that I say that resonates with you, that I share about Cailen that sparks joy with you, feel free to use the emoji reaction buttons. I'm going to start right now with my little heart. You can see my heart right here. And I chose the heart because I am so happy, and as cliche as it sounds, I am so honored to be able to share just a little bit about my experiences with Cailen. And, as she said, I know that I'm technically her boss, right? I'm the principal, but the truth is I see her and she functions as a co-leader. And she is someone that I'm constantly learning from. And more so than that, she's just an amazing friend, someone I can be real and honest with, someone who calls me out when I make mistakes and then helps me fix them. And for those of you that are teachers, and I even imagine in other careers and other workforces, you wish sometimes someone would bring your principal or your boss right back down to reality. That's what Cailen does for me. So thank you, Cailen, for that. If there's one thing that I want everyone to leave here knowing, it's that Cailen is a fierce warrior, champion advocate for children, for families, and for teachers. I have worked with Cailen for 4 years now, which is really hard to grasp that it's only been 4 years. And I think it's because of the outstanding accomplishments that she's achieved in that relatively short time. And when I say that Cailen is a fierce warrior for children and families, it's not just at the Bates School where she works, but in the entire Boston public school community and in the wonderful town of Dedham. Over the last few years, Cailen has led the necessary and important work of meeting with community members, in particular white community members, and I mean teachers, parents, families, to dive deeper into understanding how race impacts the way we interact with others and the way we perceive the world. She's courageously led these conversations by modeling what it means to reflect, to learn, to admit, but most importantly, it's to work towards change and action by listening and uplifting the voices of leaders, of colors, of allies, and of co conspirators. Her work and impact has extended beyond the four walls of our school. There are other schools that are requesting her leadership in facilitation of these conversations. And she's brought this to Dedham too. She has felt within herself that she has a responsibility to her community. And so she's worked with fellow Dedham residents to institute the Dedham Anti-Racism Coalition, which I believe I checked today has over 1,000 members. I started by saying that Cailen is a fierce warrior for children and families, and I want to come back to children. Uh, the passion, the immense desire that to improve communities that Cailen strongly holds onto stems from her deep care for children and families. She knows, she believes and knows that our children deserve more, that they deserve better. And that more, that better, that starts with us. It starts with us here through a process of reflection, through using our power, the power we have to move mindset, to change policies, and to improve the organizations like our public school system that services our children. And I know Cailen will be able to do that. I also shared that Cailen has been a champion for teachers. When she was hired to be an inclusion specialist at the Bates, I know that our community had no idea that she would be such a unicorn. And I keep saying she's a unicorn because she is such a unique practitioner with so many strengths. Y'all ain't gonna find another Cailen, I promise you. Okay, I wish I could. Okay, I will multiply her. Um, it's hard to quantify her impact because what she has done for our school community is greater than just what numbers can tell. She has revolutionized the way we think about the potential of children. She has built up the efficacy, the confidence of teachers by being approachable, by being non judgmental, and at the same time by holding really high expectations of teachers, of herself, and also of what children are capable of. I will quantify a little bit. 2 years ago, we celebrated our first time being a level 1 school using Boston Public Schools' new school quality framework, which takes into account student achievement, family surveys, attendance, and staff climate surveys. And I'll also share that after years of low student growth, particularly in math, we saw a 96% increase in student growth percentiles, and that is true across subgroups. I know that this speaks to the hard work of our teachers and also to the impact that Cailen has had on our school. I'm gonna share just maybe like 2 or 3 more things. I tend to talk a lot, so bear with me. Um, I implore everyone here to vote for who they believe Dedham Public Schools deserves and needs on their school committee. I believe that is Cailen McCormick. Beyond that, I implore, as I think it was Reynolds who said, find 3, 4, 5, 10 Dedham folks, friends, families, people you're, waiting in line from the grocery store. 10. He said 10. Okay, 10. 15. I'm gonna say 15. Okay. And tell them about Cailen. Tell them about this meeting. Tell them about her why. Tell them about the work that she has accomplished and the work that she hopes to accomplish and will accomplish in Dedham. Lastly, I'm gonna give a huge, big thank you to Cailen. This has been such a challenging year, and she has been there every single step of the way. And I don't even mean like she's been there for me, which she has, but she has been there for the school. She has been there for the community. And I mean like remote learning, right? Supporting students, supporting teachers, leading professional development and common planning times with teachers, all the while, as she mentioned and has been mentioned, being an extraordinary mom, right? Like we've had meetings where she's holding on to her little one and the other one's running in the background, but she is focused, right? And making moves. Also, while spearheading our school's grocery delivery program, where she literally delivers groceries to families in need. And somehow finding the time to compete with me on workouts and letting me win sometimes so I feel good about my personal records. So again, thank you, Cailen, for everything, and I'm so excited for you, and thank you, everyone that's here.
Thank you so much, Rodolfo. That was awesome. So our last speaker tonight is Sari Chait. She's one of Cailen's friends and neighbors. And then after Sari, we're going to go right into the Q&A segment. Sari, all yours.
Thanks, Liz. Can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. Well, as Liz said, I'm Sari Chait. I have been a Dedham resident for a little over 6 years now. I am a proud parent of an ECEC kiddo, a proud parent of an Avery kiddo, and a proud neighbor of the McCormick family. So Cailen and I met a few years ago in sort of a very classic suburban parent way. Our oldest kids went to the ECEC together, and Cailen and I met at the bus stop. Our kids became instant friends in a way that only kids can do. And so every morning while they were running around playing tag in a different neighbor's yard, Cailen and I would sip our coffee and chit chat and get to know each other. Shortly after that, my partner and I met Ben, and thankfully we liked him too. And that was how our friendship started. And the McCormicks very quickly became a part of our village. But Cailen is not just a neighbor. She is a friend, and she's a friend whose opinion I really value. I trust her wholeheartedly, and I often go to her for advice. I often find myself asking her if I should do something I'm thinking about, or I'll ask her to read an email I drafted before I send it. Worst case scenario, I ask her opinion about something I may have already done. And we don't always agree, but no matter what, Cailen has a way of telling me that she disagrees, of giving me feedback, of offering an alternative perspective without ever making me feel judged. I always walk away from those conversations feeling heard, feeling validated. She always helps me come up with a plan to move forward. But what stands out to me even more is that she also has no qualms about asking for advice herself. And she always takes feedback non-defensively, with humility, with grace. And these are values that I really cherish in a friend, and they're values that I hope to impart onto my own children. I think we've heard tonight from Cailen, from Adolfo, her professional qualifications are unparalleled in this race. Her passion for diversity and inclusion is obvious. Her commitment to Dedham is clear. But beyond all that, I think what ultimately sets Cailen apart is her temperament, her humanity, for lack of a better word, her kind soul. Cailen is not only a qualified candidate, but I am confident that she will lift up our community and will make an exceptional school committee member.
Thank you, Sari. So at this point, we're going to turn to the Q&A portion. So we've had some questions that came in already. We're going to start with a question that was submitted. This was anonymous, and the question was, how should the school committee support the increased mental health needs of students after nearly a year of COVID restrictions?
Thanks, Liz. And thank you. I just have to say thank you so much to Sari and Rodolfo for your words. I was like half tearing up, half laughing. It was great. So thank you so much. Regarding the mental health question, this is so important, and something that I feel like, we as a family are even dealing with our own children. And as an educator, we see this in our schools with our students who have been able to come back. And the mental health has to be a priority as we welcome students back into the building. And as I said in the speech that I prepared for all of you earlier, we need to open doors, right? Like, kids need to be back in school in order to appropriately access so many of these services. Zoom counseling sessions are challenging. Zoom support sessions are challenging, and we need to have students in buildings. And I really know, as an educator on the other end of things, that this is really challenging. So I just want to emphasize that schools need to be open. They need to be open safely and equitably, which is challenging. I think once schools do open, we need to use funding to fund robust mental health supports for children. We need counseling services, and mental health needs to come first, because if students aren't emotionally healthy, then they're not going to be making academic gains. So it really, really just needs to be a priority. And again, just to tie in what I just said, opening doors, thinking about how we're going to fund additional support and making sure that that happens.
Thank you, Cailen. Now, Kara Presley submitted a question. If you want to come off mute and ask your question.
Oh, there we go. Hi there. I was just hoping that you could speak to your view on where you believe SEL, social emotional learning, fits within the curriculum and what direction you think Dedham should go.
Love it. Great question, Kara. Thank you so much. So I think that social emotional learning really needs to be embedded throughout the curriculum. It shouldn't be a separate, so if we're thinking about tiered supports in schools, with tier 1 supports being supports that every single student has access to. So bottom level, tier 1 supports, social emotional skills and tools need to be built into the curriculum for all students. Students who might need a little bit more support, who might need a little bit extra than what's provided in tier 1, that those supports would be tier 2 supports, and tier 3 supports for students who might need, more and more than what's offered in tier 1. So I think we need to think about tier 1 supports as like standard supports for all of our students, access to embedded social emotional wellness as a priority, and then thinking about how we can build upon that. Thank you. Great question, Kara. I hope I answered it.
Thank you, Cailen. Okay, so this next question was submitted anonymously. What ideas do you have for DPS to decrease the achievement gap between white students and students of color?
That's a great question. So I think one of the things that we need to do is really work on building community and making sure that all of our students are represented in our curriculum across the board. Yes, we need Black History Month, but we need Black and Brown cultures celebrated across the entire year and embedded within the curriculum. That a lot of work that we've done at the Bates is really analyzing curriculum and thinking about what are the biases that are in each bit of curriculum, and how can we counteract those biases? How can we modify the curriculums that we're being provided with that might not be culturally responsive and anti-racist? And how can we modify these things to make sure that we are celebrating the lives of all of the students who walk through our doors? Did that answer that? Did it have a second part, Liz, or did I get it?
No, I think you did.
Okay, thank you.
It was just that part. Yep. So we have a number of anonymous questions coming in, which is good because people are free then to ask without restraint. So why do we need another teacher on the school committee when we already have 3?
Great question. I think that our board is made up of 7 school committee members, and I think as a member of the school committee, I have, even if, with other teachers on the school committee, I have unique perspective in that I have leadership. I have leadership at the district level, and I have leadership at the school level. I also have a lot of special education experience, which I do know that there are folks on school committee with special education experience, but I think that I will be able to hit the ground running if elected in April, and I will be able to jump right in. I can speak on policies and goals that the school committee addresses, as well as I've had budgetary experience as well. So there won't be any lag time with me joining the school committee. I will be able to jump right in and hit the ground running.
Another anonymous question, Cailen, how do you plan to ensure that students who excel have access to the resources they need to continue to develop?
That's a great question. And with a kid who, I have my own child who, he has a certain love for environment and animals, and really hones in on those things. But I think it's important that when we're thinking about budgetary decisions and we're thinking about what students need in order to succeed, that we're making sure that we're taking those students who need enrichment activities into consideration. So of course, enrichment activities and extensions to curriculum, that takes money in a lot of cases. There's a lot that we can do within the classroom to make sure that students are receiving enrichment and extension of the curriculum. But I think it starts with budget, and we need to think about how we're structuring the budget to make sure that all of our students are getting what they need in order to succeed.
Go away for good. Hold on, associate, go see your father. One more, that's multitasking. One more question that just came in, again, anonymous. There's a feeling around town that once their children reach upper middle and high school, many Dedham families leave DPS for private schools. What do you see DPS doing right now to try to keep those students? Do you think it's working? And what can DPS do better to keep Dedham kids in Dedham public schools through graduation?
That's a great question. So I was looking a little bit at the attrition rates in Dedham Public Schools, and there is a high level of attrition from 8th grade to 9th grade. And I think, like, just in speaking to folks around town, I've heard, people leave for different reasons. They might have had plans to leave come high school. I also think that there is a lot of weight that is placed on like these U.S. News and World Report school rankings. And I think we really need to think about that and think about the weight that is placed on that, and the fact that there are other things that we need to think about when we're thinking about how great schools are. I think we need to work on building community in our schools. I think we need to work on making sure that there's a continuum from middle school through high school, and that folks who are enrolled in the middle school really feel that it's a community to continue on with their colleagues and with their peers onto the high school level. And I think we need to make sure that there's programming at the high school level that supports all students. So, I've heard from different families that there isn't enough access to level courses in the high school. So making sure if that's something that's needed, that's something that we explore. Thinking about looking into trade courses for students as well. I think this is really important that we involve the community in these conversations around why are families leaving after 8th grade and what is needed. We had a really great poll that the district sent out not too long ago about academic instruction around it with COVID and hybrid learning. And I think that this is a really, really important way to get parent feedback and really learn why are people leaving and what can we do to build community and ensure that families stay through 12th grade.
Thank you. Thank you for that. A question from Rachel School, if you want to come off mute.
So, hi, I'm Rachel. There's 8 people running for 3 positions right now. What differentiates you from those other candidates?
Thanks, Rachel. So I think I'm hoping that after spending an hour with me and with hearing people speak about me and hearing me speak a little bit, that you can hear the passion in my voice. Like, I am so passionate about education in Dedham for my children and for all of our children, and ensuring that we are able to really build a community and build a space in these schools that is accepting for all students. I mean, you heard me all speak tonight. I don't shy away from what I believe is right, and I hold firm to those values, and I will do that. And I think that sets me apart. I also, my experience in education, I know there was a question about there already being folks on the school committee, but it's a school committee. Like, we need people with experience in schools. We need people who can hit the ground running and who can make informed decisions about practice, who have worked in classrooms, who have worked in schools, who have worked for the district, and who have young children. Like, I am personally invested. What happens in the schools matters to my family and my children. So I think that's what sets me apart, Rachel. Thanks for your question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really hope that we've hit on those, topics that were top of mind for people earlier on in that word cloud when we first started. But at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Anne to tell you a little bit more about joining, the momentum of this campaign.
And I'll be quick. In the interest of time, I know Saturday night, 7 to 8, people probably want to go do something else. But I do really hope that you enjoyed hearing from Cailen and her colleagues and friends about why she is uniquely qualified to serve as Dedham's next school committee member. We know 1 hour again isn't enough to really get all the questions answered. We did get tons of questions. Those that we were not able to get to, we will post her responses to on the Facebook page, on the website, and we will put links to those in the chat here as well. So if you haven't already liked her Facebook page, please do so. Again, we talked about how competitive this race is, how we need your support. So I just wanted to share a screen with you to show different ways that you can lend your support. And we already talked about the number one, vote. You yourself personally get out to the polls on Saturday, April 10th, cast your vote for Cailen. One of your 3 votes really would be very much appreciated. And then the link for volunteering, again, will be in the chat, but there is a Google form. We would love if you would put your address in there. We'll do all the heavy work. We'll do the labor. We'll come and put a lawn sign in your yard. It seems like in Dedham, that's the thing to do. So a month before, come about March 10th, we'll be posting lawn signs. We'd love to have them peppered all across the town. Share with your community, your friends, your neighbors. You can post on whatever you post on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can email folks. You can handwrite letters, whatever works. But Rudolfo said it, 15 people. You are supposed to go find 15 people and have them join our team too. We will also be getting some Dear Friend postcards. So for a lot of those folks that maybe aren't on Facebook, maybe you've got some older people in your community or whatever the case may be, you can actually send them a little Dear Friend postcard that just says, hey, neighbor, this is why I think you should vote for Cailen. And then lastly, we will be getting, we know with COVID, we want to make sure that everybody is being safe. Instead of canvassing and going knocking on doors and talking to people, we're going to get door hangers. And if you are able to go and distribute some door hangers in your neighborhood, we would really appreciate that as well. And then lastly, we put a link to the Act Blue for any donations. If you'd like to contribute to the campaign, any amount would be greatly appreciated. $5, $10, $500, whatever you are able to do, we promise to put it to really good use. So with that, I will turn it over to Cailen to just wrap us up. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And Cailen, it's all you.
Just reiterate what we already said. I want to be super respectful of everybody's time, but I cannot thank you all enough for coming out and listening, meeting us virtually tonight, meeting me virtually tonight. And I really hope to cross paths with all of you. Please, please, please reach out to our campaign email address on Facebook, however is easiest for you. And I really look forward to connecting with all of you, and I appreciate your support. Thank you so very much. Fantastic Saturday.
My heart's on fire. Come to me wild and wild.